The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Victoria Jones from Satoshi's Page,
Hello, hello, evening all.
the Daniel from pubkey.bar,
What's up?
and I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one. Issue one, SEC approves first spot Ether ETFs to start trading on Tuesday. And since we're living in the future, let's check the results. The first day of inflows for the Ether ETF stakes are in. The Ethereum ETFs took in $107 million, BlackRock leading the way with $266 million, and Bitwise Invest with $204 million. A very solid day for the Ethereum ETFs. However, the price of Ethereum has fallen 7% in the last 7 days, with the price of Bitcoin up around 1.27% in the same time period. Victoria Jones, we talked about them all the time, how much easier it would be for Ethereum to get the ETF, and now here they are, Ethereum ETFs. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's no surprise. ETFs are much more similar to the way in which the existing financial system works. So it's no surprise that they were going to organize that eventually. And I think it is a threat to Bitcoin really because Wall Street has a lot of money. ETFs are their baby. And ultimately Bitcoin is designed to disrupt the existing financial system. So anything that comes in as competition to that is a definite threat. I mean, we saw this in 2017 when Ether first entered the crypto industry, and quickly there was an explosion of other there were expo there were an explosion of other tokens, including the ICO tokens, which were tokens that were effectively tokens for individual businesses, which operate similar to the stock market. And there was a complete explosion in their value. And while it did help Bitcoin in the short term, it did create a lot of confusion, that bubble. Certainly a lot of money went into the industry. And so I would imagine that Wall Street is probably going to follow the same trajectory. I'm sure they witnessed all of that and have learnt lessons from it and are maybe trying to use the same thing. I mean, with these situations, I always try to imagine how the enemy is thinking and what they intend to do. And no doubt, many clever people will have studied exactly what happened and will be trying to figure out a way to make it benefit them. So yeah, watch this space. I think we've got interesting times ahead.
For quite a while, we've talked about the differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum. And one of the things that I think Wall Street and other people like about Ethereum is it's really easy to understand who created it. Ethereum has a creator, they have a team of creators, they were marketing it, they were selling it, and now there are hundreds, perhaps even thousands of Ethereum programmers. In that way, as much as all the Bitcoiners like to swat at the altcoins or the shit coins and say, they'll die, they'll go away, they keep popping up because now there's so many programs, so much interest, so much time spent and money spent on Ethereum. It's just not going to go away. And now we see Ethereum with its own ETF, which is similar to Bitcoin, came out a lot faster. Of course, I think the big question for them is, are they going to stake those coins? And are the Ethereum ETFs eventually going to take over the Ethereum network? Something that you can't do with Bitcoin. Daniel, what do you think about the Ethereum ETFs?
So I think unlike Victoria, I don't really see it as a threat. I mean, you can put any kind of crap in an ETF you want. So, why not a Dogecoin ETF? Why not, a Shiba Inu ETF? This is what Wall Street does. They love to just find assets they can co-opt and monetize. And I don't see it as anything any different. They saw Bitcoin, and of course, as soon as they realized the Bitcoin ETF was successful, in your typical fiat industry mindset, they look for the next opportunities. These are people who always seek exits. They're not in it for the long run. People who understand Bitcoin, he'd buy it and HODL it. They're willing to write out an entire cycle. Someone who's buying an ETF, whether it's retail or even industry, I think would be more inclined to take profits when they see a small bump. So, it goes up 10%, that's time to take profits. They're looking to cash out into fiat and they're using it as a vehicle. So any opportunity that comes their way, I think is appropriate for that type of trading mindset. I don't think it's a threat to Bitcoin. I think it just shows, it'll probably even show maybe faster the real benefits of Bitcoin, how it is sovereign, how it is something you can hold yourself, and how there really is a massive difference between the decentralized nature of Bitcoin and something that's quite a bit more centralized, especially with the way that Ethereum validators work, with the way that staking works. You will have all this run by BlackRock. They'll be the ones who control the validators. Everything will be on cloud services, and that's how these are going to operate. But I think a lot of people who are into Ethereum are not in it for those aspects. Some people love it for the ability to write smart contracts, to produce tokens. It's a playground for developers. But I'd like to see that more, what people are building on those products come back to Bitcoin. And I think if it brings attention to this industry, people will naturally gravitate towards the harder money asset, and that's Bitcoin.
I agree, Daniel. I think it is a playground for developers, and now it's a very well-funded playground. The exit question is obvious but predictable. We have to ask: Bitcoin ETF, Ethereum ETF, what altcoin will have their ETF next? Victoria Jones.
Well, if Elon Musk got anything to do with it, Dogecoin.
Daniel, do you see a Dogecoin ETF, or do you have your eye on another coin?
I have my eyes on no other coins, but if I were to venture a guess, probably Solana, just because the developer community is very excited about that. Everyone seems to be buzzing about the Ethereum pillars, and which Dogecoin is not. Dogecoin is just, it's basically something that people make for fun. It doesn't have a real financial purpose. Solana, from the way it's described to me, has a lot more functionality. So I think that's probably where the industry will push for an ETF. But who knows? And I don't actually care.
Solana does seem like the obvious and logical pick, which is not to say that it will happen. It very well could be a Dogecoin ETF just to drive my poor friend Jackson Palmer absolutely crazy. He invented it as a joke. He didn't like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. He was criticizing it, and his joke is now being used by Elon and others to manipulate millions of dollars in the market, allegedly, of course. Moving on to issue 2, Bitcoin and politics, starting out with Donald Trump, who's speaking at the Bitcoin convention in Nashville, where Daniel is currently at, has raised more than $4 million in Bitcoin and other digital coins, quote, according to the article, as crypto support pays off. Most of the funding is coming from the two Winklevi twins, who both donated $1 million apiece, and my friend Jesse Powell from Kraken, who also donated $1 million to the embattled former president, who's also a felon, a accused rapist, and other questionable things, but says he likes Bitcoin, so everyone's okay with it now. Just what do you guys think about the general atmosphere and timing where people are supporting a candidate because of statements that they've made recently about Bitcoin, not actions that they took in the past while they were president, and not statements that they made in the past while they were president? Daniel, what do you think about the sudden turn in Bitcoin to the right wing?
First of all, you got me laughing so hard because you just folded Donald Trump by calling Jesse Powell Jesse Kraken like Tim Apple, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, I'm at the Bitcoin conference, if you can't already tell, in Nashville. Today, I think Michael Saylor's speaking, and at some point RFK Jr. will be speaking. Trump is here tomorrow for the keynote. I will not be here for that. I'll be far away from the conference center. What can I say? People are suckers if they want to donate to political candidates using Bitcoin. That's their right to do, I guess. This is how the fundraising process works. I personally not a supporter of Donald Trump. Never have been, because I lived in New York while he was doing a lot of the things that made him famous, and I'm not an enormous fan of things he's done in the past. That said, it is interesting to see the attention that's now drawn to Bitcoin spilling over into other areas of politics. I think what we need to have is more of a conversation and a discussion about why Bitcoin is important for national security. If it opens up those conversation topics to a wider audience, then I think it's great. We could potentially have a Donald Trump presidency where Bitcoin becomes much more of a useful thing for American security. Maybe we'll see Ross Ulbricht be freed. I hope so, if that happens. There's really no guarantees of anything, because when you get in bed with someone who is a known con artist, you can't really you feel bad for yourself if you get caught, right? So I would like to see more of an open discussion among the entire political spectrum about Bitcoin, and that's what I do in my day-to-day with events that I am involved with. But yeah, here we are. I don't plan to be at the Trump speech tomorrow, but I'll be keeping an eye on things.
It really has been amazing if you followed the New York tabloids or just were alive and around in the 80s and the 90s. Trump was mainly known for cheating on his wives. He always seemed to have one wife, and then there was a new girl he was cheating with, and then he'd marry that new girl, and then he'd find this other girl to cheat with. And this was all very public in the tabloids, very public on the Howard Stern show. And it was such a surprise to see the mainstream take that apprentice TV show, which is similar to Survivor, similar to Naked and Afraid. It's a reality show, right? That means it has no reality. And they took that as truth, that Trump was this powerful millionaire making choices, sitting in the boardroom, deciding who wins and who loses. And somehow that carried over into the mainstream. I think it's very sad to see Jesse Powell and the Winklevis sending their money to Trump. It seems incredibly nouveau riche, where they just got some money and now they're in a hurry to get rid of it, and they're randomly giving it to someone else who's actually, according to what he says and what they say on paper, far richer than them, far in less need of this money than perhaps they will be soon. So it is very shocking, very surprising, and I agree with Daniel. I just don't think he's going to keep his word. He didn't help Bitcoin while he was in office. He didn't free Ross at the end of his last term. I don't know that he would free him at the end of his next term. And if you want to take his word for it, that's fine. But we can look at the track record of other people who have accepted his word, such as contractors, people who worked for his hotels, people that worked in his administration. Most of his cabinet will not be voting for him a second time, or even his vice president, who, as it seems on January 20th, they attempted to hang. So, Victoria, what do you think about Trump now suddenly raising millions of dollars off of Bitcoin? And we did previously have laws in the United States that limited how much money you could donate, so that it didn't just look like a billionaire like Elon Musk was buying the election by donating allegedly $45 million a month, something that he said that he stopped just as soon as Trump came out against the EV mandates, which of course would be bad for the Tesla auto company.
Yeah, I mean, well, politics is just a circus, isn't it? And no one does a better circus than the United States. Yeah, I mean, we've commented on this several times. We were in Mallorca 2 weeks ago, just before Nashville. A couple of our colleagues are going to be there along with Daniel today. Yeah, interesting times. I mean, certainly from the Bitcoin perspective, considering where we were in 2017, what, less than 7 years ago, where people hardly knew about Bitcoin, to now have the presidential candidates literally fighting over who's going to support it, is incredible, really. In spite of the in spite of the hypocrisy, the fact that everyone's talking about it, I think, is a remarkable thing. What's interesting, though, is that apparently the Bitcoin donations are being converted to USDC, which probably tells you what's the real feeling is behind the scenes, and most of it is then being liquidated for cash donations, and a small amount of USDC is being held onto. So what that tells you about the commitment towards Bitcoin, I'm not sure. I mean, this is going to be a very interesting game to watch play out. As I said in my previous comment, I think there's all sorts of shenanigans on the horizon. So just be careful, folks. We know that Bitcoin is the real deal, but it's fighting a powerful enemy, and they've got many tricks up their sleeve before this game is over.
It is very unfortunate that they're not holding the Bitcoin and they're converting it into something else. It does show people right away what this is really about, which is just money and donations. We had another interesting political story. It looks like Fortune's only letting me read the headline, though. Crypto CEO Ryan Selkis resigns after tweeting that it's literal war for those who don't vote for Trump. He also tweeted some negative sentiment at a immigrant, something about along the lines of immigrants should go home, something along those lines. And I just think it's funny that these CEOs and these people think that they've gotten so far and they've gotten so powerful in the world that they can just say whatever kind of negative and mean things that they want on Twitter. At its very core, saying literal war, saying to the other person that they should go home is so incredibly negative and so obviously not acceptable in society. It's interesting to see that they think it's just okay. And even when they're caught, they receive kind of a slap on the wrist and everything goes on as normal. But Daniel, what do you think about the interesting comments from this crypto CEO and mainly the larger fact that they think it's acceptable to say this kind of negative stuff in public, similar to an analogous, not directly to South Carolina, where they didn't bother to wear the hoods at the meeting. They just came out with without the Klan robes. What do you think, Dan?
It's the algorithm making people angry. Wait, did I get muted? Twitter does that to people who have, I think, a passion and a fervor that they fall down this rabbit hole and suddenly they think that everyone agrees with them, and they can just say whatever they want. Hopefully this is an eye opener for him and for other CEOs and so-called business leaders that you actually have to appeal a little bit more broadly to people. But again, he works within the sort of narrower sphere, and I think he thinks that everyone has a similar mindset to him. I know who Ryan Selkis is. He's been around for long enough in this industry, and for someone like that to be so aggressive and angrily tweeting at people, I just think it's bad form. It just shows like a level of maturity that I think for an adult, for someone who's a responsible person in a position of power, should be a little bit more restrained and a little bit more capable of holding their own. And it feels like someone, some of the Trump energy has rubbed off on him and people like him. And it doesn't always work, right? Maybe it works for Trump because he's got the brand. The other people who try to mimic that, it just looks sad. It just looks like a desperate attempt to be to get more attention. And I hope that other people learn from the mistake.
That's a very interesting thing that happens where if people are right about crypto and they're right about technology, they suddenly think that they're right about politics and right about everything else. And I think, again, Daniel, like you're saying with the Twitter, he got in there, he got excited. It was a spur of the moment decision to put these opinions out there, obviously, and it was a mistake. But I think what the larger mistake here is that he was being cruel. He was being cruel to people that have nothing. The immigrants have nothing. He's a rich and powerful CEO, and he was exhibiting public cruelty. And as bad as our society is, as bad as it's getting, it's not bad to the point where you can just be publicly cruel. Like whenever you're publicly cruel to a small, weaker group, I believe it's going to end badly for you. I believe you're going to have this kind of backlash. You're going to lose jobs. You're going to lose contracts. And it's not even that you're right or wrong about your politics or your opinion. It's that you're being mean. It's that you're being cruel. And I think they should not do that. Victoria, what do you think about the interesting comments from the former crypto CEO.
Yeah, I mean, cruel. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, certainly, you know, Bitcoin Twitter can get very toxic in terms of being very intolerant of other people's opinions, very kind of draconian and one-sided in terms of how to view a particular situation. And ultimately, it's just ego bashing at the end of the day. It becomes meaningless. There's no discussion of the finer points of the technology. As good as Bitcoin is, it still has a number of challenges that still need to be overcome. It's by no means a done deal. Um, you know, Politics at the end of the day is ultimately redundant if Bitcoin actually fulfills its destiny. And so, all of these people are missing all of those things, which I think is a real shame because this is a really important, world-changing topic. And very few people are discussing it on that level of depth, which I think is really sad. I mean, even some of the most prominent voices seem to be missing the point half the time. I mean, I've heard that, Michael Saylor is very insistent that it's going to be digital gold and not peer-to-peer cash. And it's just like, okay, but those of us who've been following the story since the beginning know that that's just one step in its journey. And gold was only a currency because people were actually using it to trade before it became, just what was supported by the banks. And, fiat currency only really got its destiny once they stopped gold from being traded in the economy. Most of these people only know their financial history back to 1971. Their education is very limited. And Yeah, I think it's a real shame because a lot of people listen to these people and they're only getting half the story. And how does that serve anybody at the end of the day? And to do that with cruel comments, it's just like, is this what humanity's come to? Um, it's shocking, really. So yeah, not impressed.
I could just add something. I love what you just said. Um, I've observed over the years that Bitcoin has this interesting uh, property, this ability to bring out the personality and the true nature of people. And if you are a bad person, Bitcoin will not make you a better person. It will just emphasize how much of a bad person you are. If you're a good person with good intentions, Bitcoin can be used to improve other people's lives and can be used as a vessel to bring better property rights and better technology for the transfer of assets and to support people who live in poverty, who need access to unstoppable money because they've been oppressed by their governments. There's so many positive use cases, but all this negativity doesn't support us, doesn't help us drive forward the apolitical work, the very hard work that people have been doing for years. It's all overshadowed by this angry political rhetoric, and it's just sickening for me to see that people are carrying that forward.
I agree, Daniel. It does seem like we've kind of lost touch with the early Bitcoin ideas, and it's almost like our cell phone signal is out, like we're going through a tunnel. And if you look back at what we used to have one Andreas, and he was out there and he would say things all the time like, Bitcoin is not really for the first world. Bitcoin is really for the developing world. It's not really for you. You have a working credit card, you have working cash. You don't lose half of your salary if you hold on to dollars over the weekend. It's really for the other people, but that's not what they're preaching now at these conferences. We've gone from having one Andreas to having no Andreases. It's not like we have 300 Andreases at these conferences. Like you say, we have the Michael Saylor guy, we have this Bitcoin magazine guy who owns all the Bitcoin media, and we have now the CEO of BlackRock bragging about how Bitcoin is in his blood. And he's been in Bitcoin, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, all along when we really needed these people, like when we needed Mark Cuban, when we needed someone like Tony Hawk or basketball player John Sally. They were not here for Bitcoin. Mark Cuban, in specific, making a video with Rolling Stone where he criticized Bitcoin, saying that he would rather buy bananas. It's one thing to not say anything nice about Bitcoin, not to comment on it, but it's another thing to put out a direct insult video and then to expect to be taken seriously and go to conferences and talk to Congress and whatever it is, because again, he's on some TV show that makes him look like a good investor. So it's very strange to go through this dark time without any Andreases, with all these CEOs speaking about how it's in their blood. And like Victoria said, none of them speaking about the amazing changes for people in the world, the ability to send money to anyone, even a cause that you don't agree with, and have that money be uncensorable and unstoppable. And that's what this is really about. But once again, I think we'll be fine. I think we're going to go through the tunnel. We're going to come out on the other side. And all these people who have brought the Trojan horse into their walls are going to say, we did what? We brought open source digital money into our walls. We're a payments company and we make money on the charges. We cannot have this open source digital money inside our walls, but it'll be there. We have a couple more political stories. I'm going to move through them maybe a little quicker here. As you guys all know, in the last 2 weeks since we've been off the air, President Joe Biden has decided not to run for re-election, leaving the likely race to be the vice president, Kamala Harris, versus Donald Trump. Donald Trump, of course, was scheduled to speak at the Bitcoin conference there in Nashville. Vice President Harris, just beginning her campaign a few days before, obviously had no plan to speak. It sounds like a very nice thing. The Bitcoin conference extended her an invitation, which of course she declined because she's just started her campaign. It's a very natural, obvious decline. But then the Bitcoin conference people started attacking Kamala Harris. So it's very strange. I agree very much with Adam Cochran right here at adamscochran.eth. He says, it sucks that they couldn't close on this, but it's still an incredibly daft move for the community to continue to attack when campaigns are making active outreach to engage. We should continue to work with anyone who reaches out to try to move constructive crypto policy forward on both sides of the aisle. By all accounts, her campaign team has been reaching out to lobbying groups to make a real effort here. And if all this industry gives back is a cold shoulder, we give them no reason to not go work with anti-crypto people or regulatory capture folks who have given them the time of day. As David Bailey, owner of BTC Media, owner of Bitcoin Magazine, owner of the Bitcoin conferences, said Kamala Harris will not be speaking at the Bitcoin conference. And this is his opinion here that he's added on, and I'm not sure why he's doing this. He says, no surprise. What can she say when she's actively imprisoning developers, forcing our industry overseas, attacking proof of work? It would have been a disaster for her. All eyes on Trump now. And there's an additional comment where Mr. Bailey also said that about Kamala Harris, I'm sorry, but you don't just get to, quote, screw over our industry for 4 years, push Operation Choke Point, enlist Gensler and Warren as your champions, and then just pretend you're hip with Bitcoin. Major Democrat donor told me Kamala privately says Bitcoin is money for criminals. And I would see this as something that we need to change. And also, ironically, very similar to Donald Trump's public opinions on Bitcoin until suddenly he started accepting it for donations and changed his tone. As Turdemeester on Twitter writes, the person who most believes themselves a victim is always the one who ends up becoming the bully, showing where Mr. Bailey unfortunately attacked Kamala Harris. Just to access the panel here, what do you guys think? Obviously, it's very close to her announcement of her presidential campaign. Was it unreasonable for Mr. Bailey to attack Kamala when all she did is turn down a speaking arrangement? And again, I think we need both sides of the aisle here. Victoria, what do you think? About this little kerfuffle here?
Well, clearly, if she's only just taken over, she needs time to get her act together. I mean, obviously, the Trump assassination attempt was a surprise to a lot of people, which seems to have influenced Biden stepping down and then Kamala stepping up. So in those sorts of situations, you're kind of on the back foot. And the guy who mentioned that the Democrats have been actively hostile towards Bitcoin. They have been trying to shut it down. And even Kamala Harris saying that privately she believes Bitcoin is for criminals. Well, if you think criminals are those who actively go against the law, I mean, the law, the way it is made, is what supports our existing currency system. The two are very intimately linked. And ultimately, Bitcoin disrupts that. And so from that perspective, Bitcoin is for criminals. You could call anyone who's trying to go against the existing legislation or trying to disrupt the way the system it actually works. If you define them as a criminal, then technically she's right. But of course, most people don't understand that. They think criminals as being people who do bad things. But actually, technically, criminals are anyone who does anything that's seen as unlawful. And unlawful is anything that goes against rules that are made by the politicians who sit in government. And of course, there are many people who maintain that those people are the criminals. If you're talking about things that are unethical or corrupt or people who are doing all sorts of things, I mean, okay, there are a number of rabbit holes you could go down with that one. But the thing is, the longer you have a certain kind of law, we've now got to a stage where you make a bad law which has unintended consequences. You need another 10 laws in order to counteract the bad outcomes for that initial law. And the longer that goes on, it makes criminals of everybody. And so the problem is, the language, the understanding of our way our world works is becoming more and more convoluted. And so it's really hard for these people to really understand exactly what they're looking at here. They're very focused on which individual person should or shouldn't be doing what, and they're completely missing the bigger picture. Bitcoin creates an entirely new infrastructure for money, which ultimately will require an entirely new infrastructure for our laws, and our politicians will become largely irrelevant in that environment. But it's not an idea that many people have really come to yet. And so, yeah, we're just watching a drama playing out. People can have their opinions, but ultimately, it's just a show, really.
Well, there was a time when they said that the whole internet was just for criminals. And I remember that too. It was all the downloading and all the bad things that we're up to and Usenet and all those kind of things. And I just think I agree with a lot of the Twitter posters who said really common sense things like if the Democrats are against Bitcoin, we should try to convince them that Bitcoin is good and work with them because we need to work with both sides of the aisle. There's no reason that this is just a Republican coin or just a Democrat coin. I think it's for everybody, and I think we could work together with everybody. And the first step to that is inviting them to our conference, and the second step is not attacking them if they say no. I think it's pretty unreasonable. She just started her campaign for president. He knows this. I know this. We all know this. We all watched the news. It's been nonstop. We've been glued to the TV watching the Biden situation. And I just think it was a very unfortunate tweet by Mr. Bailey and the kind of thing that he should just kind of not tweet that much. There's nothing wrong with that. Like you're a big, powerful company, big, powerful person. There's no reason you have to share your opinion all the time, be an opinion maker. You could just continue to run your company and not make these kind of dangerous, haphazard remarks. But that's happened to many people in the past where they get in trouble on Twitter. And recently, Elon Musk was even giving them money to sue people. I forget her name right now, but she was in one of the Star Wars TV shows, and she said some very negative things and was fired from the TV shows. And Elon gave her money to sue Disney, and I don't think she got anywhere at all. But Daniel, what do you think about the situation here where Kamala Harris was invited to the convention at last minute, right after she started her campaign, and of course she wasn't available?
I mean, to me, it just smells of opportunism. Of course, she wasn't going to be able to respond that quickly and move her schedule around. I mean, she's just taking over the campaign right now, and I'm sure it's so many different things going on. Like I've run events. I know how long it takes to coordinate things and get to places. And yeah, it just feels like they saw an opportunity a week in advance and said we should have Kamala speak at the convention. There's other politicians who will be here. They've already been scheduled. Yeah, there's maybe not someone necessarily from the Democratic side of things, other than RFK Jr., who I don't think has a shot in hell of becoming president, but he'll be speaking. Who will be at the conference? But I think this is a time when we need more outreach and less insulting. And I don't see why. When it shows, like, if you're going to invite someone to appear at your event and then they decline for whatever reason, and then you start attacking them. So you were never genuine about it in the first place. You never really wanted them. You were counting on them backing out or saying they couldn't make it, and then you're just going to troll them for it. Again, just another example of an embarrassing display of behavior by someone who should know better.
It is too bad. There's also something to be said about the potential security situation and perhaps the Secret Service's interest, especially as Victoria said, given the recent assassination attempt on former President Trump, likely raising the amount of security necessary for the vice president to speak anywhere, even if she wanted to. Finishing out the political issues, there was a great tweet by Alistair Milne who writes, I will not simp for a politician just because they like crypto now. I will not simp for a politician just because they like crypto now, and so forth. I totally agree with that sentiment. And this just came in right before showtime here. This is from Gabor Gerbax on Twitter. He or she writes, presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy meets Hawk Tuah girl at Nick Carter's karate combat match at a Bitcoin conference. This simulation is wild, and it is very wild to see these two together. And I heard some complaints in the chat of Jimmy Song and other people who are unhappy with the Bitcoin convention, saying that it's all celebrities and CEOs and Hawk Tuah girls. And I can't help but totally agree. I think that's what it's come to. That's what people are interested in now. They're interested in the price. They're interested in rich, big, fancy people and celebrities and other things. And they're not really interested in having Bitcoin explained to them. Daniel also mentioned that there is an open source stage at the Bitcoin conference, and I do applaud them and celebrate them for that. I think it's fantastic that they're donating any resources at all to the open source community. But it is unfortunate that stage seems to be not live streamed and not recorded, which is just kind of a personal pet peeve for me. As a historian, I get very angry when things are not live streamed and recorded because they're not saved for posterity and they're not shared with the wide audience of the internet. For all we know, there's some kind of coder out there. And if he saw one of these speeches, it could really excite him or her or them or they or whatever. And they could make an incredible new software that we're not going to get now because this information is not being shared as widely as it could. So I wish they would live stream and record those speeches. Hey, check out the World Crypto Network. We've got 3,854 videos, and they're all free on YouTube. WorldCryptoNetwork.com. A good time for you guys to give us a thumbs up down below during this live show. Moving on to the next issue, VanEck sees Bitcoin hitting $2.9 million a coin by 2050, but a lot has to happen first. As it said as a subtitle, Bitcoin is benefiting from massive economic imbalances, rising distrusts in institutions, physical recklessness, and mounting debt burdens. VanEck's Matthew Siegel says in an interview. Let's go to Daniel. What do you think about VanEck saying Bitcoin could be $2.9 million by 2050?
Sure, why not? That sounds great. How are we going to get there, though? What is going to happen in between now and then for that to take place? And does that mean economic calamity for people who aren't prepared now? And how do we mitigate the effects of that happening if suddenly we have hyperinflation affecting more people around the world? I'm not here to celebrate Bitcoin reaching massive all-time highs while people are suffering. So I think it's our responsibility to try to bring people along with us. And, that's why I don't want to see Bitcoin reach a massive height this year or next year. I think we need to get there a little bit more gradually. Of course, there will always be those moments of excitement. So we have these massive bull runs, but you have to then have a cooling off period. So as long as we get there in a sustainable manner, I think it'll be fine. But I don't want to see massive upheaval in order for that to happen.
I agree, Daniel. It was already enough trouble trying to sell people on Bitcoin back when it was $5,000. And you'd say, well, you could buy a 0.1 for $500. And they'd say, oh, that's too much money. And now it's $50,000 and you could buy a 0.1 for $5,000 or whatever it is now, 69, 67, 63, wherever we are today. In general, that idea that we've gone up so much is really galling to people, really hard to make them invest. But like you're saying, Daniel, what good is it if Bitcoin is $2.5 million a coin if 1.2 million will buy you a cheeseburger? I mean, we have to have some kind of way to spend money. And if we're in out of control hyperinflation for the normal fiat currencies, Bitcoin would be very valuable, but it'll be disaster for everyone else. Victoria Jones, what do you think about the exciting prediction 2.5, 2.9 million in 2050?
Yeah, I mean, we regularly seem to get these sorts of stories on this show. The figure just changes each day, and each time it gets bigger. I think 2 weeks ago in Mallorca, Ben was saying the prediction is 600 billion. That's what it needs to be. I mean, the numbers are just nonsense. And to be honest, anyone who's repeating a certain nonsense is misleading the audience because there's no understanding of how finance actually works. You're appealing to someone who's still saving fiat in the bank, in which case that number is appealing. But, as Daniel just says, and you've just said it, Thomas, it becomes meaningless in a situation of hyperinflation. The issues here are much more complicated. And also the other thing that was mentioned in the article is that, Bitcoin still has a number of obstacles to overcome. And so in many cases, people are celebrating as if Bitcoin has already won. And even though it's a very strong product and it's got a very good trajectory, if people are so influenced by such shallow stories at the moment, all you need is a negative shallow story to make a lot of those buyers run for the hills. And so I would say we're in a very precarious situation, and we need to be very careful. The education of what is going on, how it actually works, encouraging the developers to to continue to develop Bitcoin in the right way are all really important missions that I think are just getting lost in all the noise.
Well, and that's why I know these Bitcoin conferences get a lot of attention and they have major political speakers and CEOs and stuff now. But again, for me, the really valuable work is being done by groups like Lamar's Black Bitcoin Billionaires, the BBB. They do all these training workshops. They have open clubhouse meetings where people can ask questions. And when people come out of there, they seem to me well trained. They want to collect Bitcoin slowly. They want a dollar cost average. They want to put in, $100 a month, something that they can afford. They want to store it on a Trezor wallet or a Ledger wallet, on an offline secure paper wallet, and they want to wait. They're not looking to get rich today or tomorrow. They're fine with 5 years or 10 years. They understand the value proposition of Bitcoin. They've been taught the fundamentals. And I think that's the kind of education, that's the kind of outreach that we need. It's not this kind of hero worship with the big speeches and the famous people, which is great. Right? I'm not against famous people. It's awesome. I wish Taylor Swift would talk more about Bitcoin, right? I wish whoever the other Beyonce, whatever the biggest star in the world is, would start talking about Bitcoin. But until they do, I think the work that Lamar does, the work that Ben does, the work that Daniel does, other people do with this on the root, on the work, ground out there in the grassroots, explaining Bitcoin to people, spreading the word that way. That's still what we need because these big articles are great, 2.9 million, all that, but it's not as good as just teaching people how it works, how you can send money around without a third party, that kind of thing. Get them to send their first Lightning transaction, that kind of thing. That's what we need. Let's move on to the exit question. Predict the future. Daniel, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower this time next week?
Oh, my favorite question. Well, I'm always bullish, so I say we're going to go higher.
Victoria, we had the Ethereum ETFs. Bitcoin went up, Ethereum went down. What do you think will happen this time next week?
Yeah, it's looking a little bit tricky at the moment, and August is not normally a great time for Bitcoin price action, so I'd say maybe lower.
All right, so I had complaints about the virtual 8 ball, so I went to a lot of trouble, brought this travel 8 ball with me, but I really don't like it. It's nice on a keychain, but it has non-standard 8 ball responses, and it's just too hard to read. So we're going to use the virtual 8 ball again, despite complaints from the audience. Magical virtual 8 ball, the source of all truth and predictions in this world. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? And shaking. And it says, Outlook good. Outlook good. The virtual 8 ball is with us. Moving on to the next issue, Bitcoin miner Marathon buys 100 million Bitcoin, not $100 million in Bitcoin. Well, it's tough to say. It says both. Will once again adopt full HODL strategy. The miner now owns more than 20,000 Bitcoin and has plans to buy more on the open market. This is a major change for Bitcoin miners, with the Bitcoin mining company Marathon showing a real belief in Bitcoin and perhaps a real reality of that $2 million number, saying that if they could just hold on to their Bitcoin, maybe they could be a much more rich and powerful company. Victoria Jones, what do you think about Marathon's strategy to hold their Bitcoin and the idea that a serious company that has probably millions of dollars in mining is now using a misspelling by a drunken man posted on a Bitcoin forum saying that they're going the full HODL?
Yes, well, it certainly publicly demonstrates to everyone their commitment. Although I would say just by being in Bitcoin mining is a dedicated strategy. The trouble is the price of Bitcoin can be very volatile, as many of us have witnessed in the past. The financial system is showing signs of serious trouble with a number of bank failures. You know, although we have a potential problem of inflation, I think many people don't factor in the problem of deflation, which often requires significant understanding to get your head around. And in a situation of sudden deflation, the Bitcoin price could suffer. So I would caution anyone against being fully invested in Bitcoin right now. Absolutely have some, but you just never know. You just have to be so careful because you just don't know what's around the corner. And that applies to the miners as well, even more so because we need them to keep working.
Trying to find that original post about the HODL, but let's just remember all the times that the media told us that HODL is an acronym and it means hold on for dear life. Daniel, what do you think about Marathon Bitcoin mining going the full HODL?
My favorite acronym. I mean, everyone knows where that really came from, and it has nothing to do with hold on for dear life. It's all about a guy whose girlfriend was drunk. Was out at a bar while he was drinking and didn't want to lose his money with some bad spirits. But yeah, I mean, it's showing. I think like it's funny. I am right now at the Bitcoin conference. Right behind me is the mining section. Marathon's right there. Just on the other side, Michael Saylor is speaking. His presence is emanating throughout the entire conference and throughout the business world. Just the other day, we saw Fold, the Bitcoin Rewards app, also announced they are taking a Michael Saylor HODL strategy. I think there's this sign that there's a lot of opportunity for companies that hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet and begin to take a more of a Bitcoin standard-like approach to running their business. I think it's not for everyone to go that route unless you have serious conviction, because as a business, if you're not ready to ride out the multiple years of people telling you that you're an idiot for investing all of your company's assets into something that is in dollar terms highly volatile, you're not going to be able to make that case to your board. Bitcoin companies will go first because they're the ones that are willing to take those risks. And I think perhaps maybe a few years from now, after we've seen a playbook play out, it's more likely to see more non-Bitcoin companies begin to take those types of approaches. They're showing how it can be done. They haven't proven that it can be done by other companies yet outside of MicroStrategy. So I think we'll have to take a wait and see approach. But clearly, if this is going to happen, it's going to come from Bitcoin-focused companies with Bitcoin management groups first, before it'll be the Coca-Colas and Microsofts of the world.
Yeah, I think this is a fine strategy. I just think it's a lot better 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I think if you look at the amount of Bitcoin being produced, how many have already been produced now? I think we're around 18 million, something like that. Uh, it would have been better earlier. The Michael Saylor strategy, I liked it a lot better when it was called Pirate at 40, and it was just a scam. And the guy was collecting Bitcoin, and he said he would pay you back later, and it turned out that he didn't, and he went to jail for it. So if I find it very odd, all these companies are getting the right idea far too late. That's not to say it won't still work for them. That's not to say that my own economy is not hold on to as much Bitcoin as you can, as long as you can. But to see large companies and supposedly very smart .com people following my own strategy or the HODL guy's strategy is very surprising to me. And I also think they're very late, very, very late to the party. As I said, the HODL guy, based on this post that was posted to the Bitcoin Talk forum by Gain Kyubi, OP senior member. This was on December 18th, 2013, just about 5 months after the Mad Bitcoin show launched. And after the launch of this show as well, the Bitcoin group, he says, I am hodling. I typed that twice because I knew it was wrong the first time. Still wrong. Whatever. Girlfriend's out at a lesbian bar. Bitcoin's crashing. Why am I holding? I'll tell you why. It's because I'm a bad trader. And I know I'm a bad trader. Yeah, you good traders can spot the highs and the lows, pit, path, piffy, wing, wong, wang, just like that and make $1 million, no problem. Sure, bro. Likewise, the weak hands are like, oh no, it's going down. I'm going to sell. He. And then they're going, oh my God, asshole. When the smart traders know what the F they're doing, buy back in. You know what? I'm not part of that group. When the traders buy back in, me, I'm already part of the market capital. So I guess who you're cheating, day traders, not me. Those taut treads saying, oh, you should have sold. Yeah, no shit. No shit, I should have sold. I should have sold moments before every sell and bought moments before every buy. But you know what, everybody is not as cool as you. You only sell in a bear market if you're a good day trader or a disillusioned noob. The people in between hold. In a zero-sum game such as this, traders can only take your money if they sell. So I've had some whiskey. Actually, on the bottle, it's spelled whiskey without an E. Whatever, sue me, but only if it's payable in BTC, because I am hodling. Yes, that's the original post. And it's very surprising to see these big companies backing this wonderful, wonderful drunken man. But let's keep moving here. Crypto exchange Kraken paid Dave Portnoy Bitcoin in a sponsorship deal. The Barstool sports chief wouldn't buy Bitcoin at the current prices, but he's always willing to take it as payment. He says he believes in it that much. Of course, he believes in it so much. He's had several live streams where he had bought Bitcoin, then decided to sell early, then saw Bitcoin rise, then got upset that he didn't buy enough, but then still thought that it was going back down. Why do companies keep supporting people like this who don't even like Bitcoin, trying to buy them? Why don't they buy people who actually like Bitcoin? Victoria, what do you think about this very strange pizza reviewer being supported by Kraken for some reason?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that crypto companies have sponsored people who don't actually like Bitcoin. I mean, FTX did it all the time. So, yeah, I mean, hardly surprising. I mean, again, it goes back to the battle of the egos again. You know, in that kind of environment, what works is the people who've got the biggest following, and they're just trying to, I suspect there are a lot of people who've now invested in Bitcoin, maybe didn't invest early enough, but are looking for the same kind of gains. And because it's not happening naturally, they're looking to manufacture a similar kind of rise in the price. And one way to do it is to do it in the way it's always worked in the stock market. And often, you know, getting celebrities to promote a product is one way of it working. And you know, it's just a sign of the times. You know, we're at the end of the fiat bubble, and so anything goes. So yeah, doesn't surprise me. The fact that he won't buy it suggests that he's not as convinced as people think, although he maintains he would be accept payment in it, but that just proves that he knows how to sell it. So in order to get some of the cash. So yeah, hey ho.
It is an incredible story. It reminds me of my own battle. I Bitcoin, of course, I was struggling at more like 10 and 300. This guy's struggling at 5K and 50K, and he keeps saying make these incredible moves, and he can't just give in and say, okay, I made mistakes in the past. In the future, I'm just going to buy this thing. I'm going to hold this thing. I think it's going to work because that worked so many times in the past. But yeah, it is very sad just paying people to like Bitcoin now. We're paying people that don't like it. We're paying people who don't care about it. And I'm reminded, of course, the great quote in Wayne's World 1 by Garth. And he's like, it's like people only do things because they get paid. And I just think that's really lame. And of course, he's wearing a full Reebok sweatsuit and he's drinking a Pepsi, and they just got done doing a Pizza Hut ad, and they're just making fun of product placement. But it's really stuck with me as we get more and more disingenuous. And I wouldn't care what this Portnoy guy claims at all, because I don't care about leaders in that way. And I think it's sad that we're trying to get the kind of people who care about leaders, the kind of sad sheep followers, and that we're trying to get them into Bitcoin now. I mean, I think there's still plenty of interesting people we could get first. Daniel, what do you think about Dave Portnoy, the pizza reviewer, being paid to like Bitcoin?
Are we in that part of the cycle again? Like it's the same thing every time. We get to that point where people just start cashing in, right? It's that what was the meme, the South Park with Cartman, the 4 steps to success, and it's all about cashing in and growing down. That's what they want to do. Like they
Oh
just
yeah,
want
the
to see,
Washington
yeah,
Redskins. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Right. They just want to see their bank account balance get bigger. They're not here for the revolution. So yeah, it's just more noise, no signal. It's just a sad state of affairs. We're going to keep doing the work we do year after year, and we're just going to watch these grifters come and go. It's just natural because Bitcoin has that attraction that brings in people like that, like moths to a flame. We're over the target, and we know that, and that's why it's bringing more attention to people like this that just want to make a quick buck. Good for them. If you can make money, go for it. If that's what your one skill is, you can sell yourself out. That's just fine. Most of us, I think, have more integrity, so we'll just continue to hodl and learn and spread the word about Bitcoin to our friends and families, and do the work that we do.
And I think Victoria nailed the true horror here, is that Portnoy doesn't understand Bitcoin. Now he's being paid in Bitcoin, and he's very likely going to sell this Bitcoin and do another video in a couple years where he says, "Oh man, I should have held that Bitcoin. What a mistake that was." And it's even worse now that he's being paid to be a crypto influencer, that Kraken has, for some reason, decided to waste their money on this guy. Speaking of wastes of money and interesting characters, Brian Armstrong has asked to be taken off of the Giving Pledge. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Brian Armstrong is now a billionaire, apparently with $11.5 billion worth of net worth. And he had promised to donate a large portion of this money when he passes away, and he's recently decided not to. And I just think, again, it's just such a bad face move. Like, let's say he's not going to do it. Why not just wait until you die and then don't do it? And then no one will know. And then you can give it to your kids or whatever you want to do, or build a big monument to yourself, maybe a big cement tower. I don't know what his plans are for the $11.5 billion. I assume it's something like he thinks he could spend it better than this massive charity that he was going to donate, which I assume is the same charity that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and other massive net worth individuals are donating to. But another loss of for Bitcoin, another unnecessary, unforced error. The Daniel, really quick, what do you think about Brian Armstrong removing himself from the Giving Pledge?
Yeah, Brian Armstrong should remove himself from anything related to Bitcoin. And they never really were strong supporters after they began to discover the route of quick and easy money through altcoins like Coindesk. So good for them. I don't know. I don't have much of an opinion on this topic. So
It is unfortunate that he signed it and then he changed his mind. Victoria Jones, what do you think about Brian Armstrong backing off from the crypto giving pledge?
I think he's suffering from a dilemma that a lot of suddenly wealthy people end up having to deal with. And that is, if you become known wealthy, the chance of you being approached by someone with nefarious intentions and a better offer for that money is highly likely. And I suspect that's what's happened. And part of the deal is that he comes out publicly and says he's no longer going to give that money to the Giving Pledge anymore. It's almost like selling your soul to the devil. It's just like you have to prove that you're now a tyrant before you can start to make progress in the new world. So yeah, it doesn't very sad, but doesn't surprise me, unfortunately.
Oh, and it reminds me a lot of Mark Zuckerberg with Facebook, where on the face of things, we're supposed to believe that Facebook is a force for good in the world, and that Zuckerberg is improving things, and that he actually cares about the planet, and so on and so forth. In reality, according to public news reports, he's building an underground bunker in Hawaii, and he's planning to survive an end of the world doomsday type scenario, which is not what you want to hear from the CEO of a massive company that's supposed to be a positive force for good in the world. You want to hear that he's engaged, that he wants to help the world, not that he's laughing at Trump jokes and quietly, privately supporting Trump despite the potential damages to our world. And yet that's the kind of thought that we're getting from the people, from these rich
Thomas,
companies. Go ahead,
it's
Daniel.
almost as if there's like a common thread tying together all the topics we're discussing today. Shitty CEOs doing bad things. Like it's almost like you planned that from the beginning.
Well, and people that they're very good at one thing. They're incredibly focused. They're like baseball players, and they only learn to hit, and they don't play the field, and they don't know how to run the bases, and they don't know the rules to the game, but they're great hitters. And the thing is, there's more to life than just hitting. And I don't think these people are seeing it. And Brian going back on this giving pledge is just such a bad public move. And I don't know what he's going to do with the money otherwise. Maybe a Scrooge McDuck money pin, the kind of thing you can just swim in, that kind of thing. Victoria, what do you think? Did you have more on the Brian issue here? All
Nope, I
right.
think I've said it all.
All right. Well, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit there. Sorry again, Brian, to give you a hard time. You're worth $11.5 billion dollars. So you're obviously more important than anyone on world. But yeah, just a bad look. Just a bad look for Bitcoin. I wish we could just not do that next time. We have a little bit of news here. According to Bitcoin Film Fest at Bitcoin Film Fest on Twitter, rumor has it that one of the biggest Bitcoin hacks in history is headed for the silver screen. Apparently, Amazon MGM Studios will be working on a new movie subtitled titled so far Dutch and Razzlecon, with production starting this summer. We've talked again, of course, about the Bitfinex hack that was allegedly taken down by these script kiddies, Dutch and Razzlecon. His wife, who made a rapping career on the internet, on YouTube and such. We predicted there would be a film. Now they are making a film. Victoria, any predictions for this film? Do you think it'll be good, bad, sensationalist, focus on the YouTube rap entirely too much, or maybe the relationship, or maybe just the money?
I think it's whatever they can do for entertainment, really. I mean, I think the fact that she had such an unusual career, I'm sure they'll make something out of that. And of course, a lot of these hacker stories do make good stories. I mean, most of us were fascinated by them at the time. It's like, how did they get away with that? And, sometimes some of the stupidity that was involved as well, what you could actually get away with at that time. And so, as a historical narrative, if they do it well, it could certainly have some value, but I think a lot depends on the production value. There are quite a few films out there on Bitcoin. Every so often on YouTube, I'll see one come up, the latest Bitcoin documentary, that will sometimes have different characters, sometimes have the same characters. Some we know, some we don't know. More often ones we know. But yeah, there's a lot of them around. So it'll be interesting to see how they try and make it different, or will it just go into the pit of obscurity like many of the others?
I do look forward to the hacking montage. I'll bet it's going to be a lot of stuff like the Watergate burglary, putting some tape over a lock, jumping into a garbage dumpster to search for the secret documents, that kind of thing. Intercut with, of course, the raps of Razel Khan and her crazy outfit and her costumes and all of that. It could be a decent movie. I don't know. I have some, I'd say, middle of the road hopes. Daniel, what do you think about the possibilities for Dutch and Razilkhan, the movie?
I will hold out any judgment until I see it, because it really depends on how well produced it is and how the story is told. There are a lot of Bitcoin documentaries out there. There's not enough fiction. I think we have an opportunity to create more innovative, cool science fiction and futurist stories about what the world would be like in 10, 20, 100 years when Bitcoin has achieved a much higher level of adoption. I haven't seen anything like that. One of the best Bitcoin themed movies I've seen is still from 2015, and it's the movie called Dope, which if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It even holds up pretty well to this day in the way that it tells the story of how Bitcoin was used to help a high school student get out of a lot of trouble that he was in. I don't know. I don't have time to watch a lot of movies these days. I'm even in a documentary that hasn't come out yet, so I'm a little nervous about how I'll be portrayed in that. But again, I don't necessarily think we need another Bitcoin documentary this year. I think what we need are more more creativity focused on the optimism that we all want to project into the world and what Bitcoin can mean to people. That's what I'd like to see.
I remember the Dope movie, but it was quite a long time ago to remember the details. Another good Bitcoin movie is on HBO. It's a multi-part documentary called The Anarchists, and it talks about the Anarchapulco Convention and some of the interesting things that happened down there. No spoilers. I'd also suggest the movie Dumb Money. While it's not really about Bitcoin, it's about the GameStop stock issue from a few years ago. I really enjoy the way it has a lot of modern music and the way it shows kind of the underclass or the plebs during the COVID crisis and how they had a very hard position to work with. And some of them were able to use GameStop stock to get ahead. And in that way, it's a positive movie, although now I'm not so sure with the recent complete collapse of the GameStop stock. And again, I think the obvious Bitcoin movie, second, I'd love to see Daniel's idea of the sci-fi space movies and futuristic Bitcoin movies, things like that. But I don't think Hollywood's there yet. But why not just the Satoshi story? Make up anything you want and say it's Satoshi. I, of course, am voting for the Trinity Satoshi with the old man, the young man, and the kind of jack of all trades, because you really do need these kind of multivariant people to make Bitcoin. It's not these CEOs out there that I just talked about who can only hit the ball who are making Bitcoin. It's these other people who can hit the ball, run the ball, catch the ball, get to second base, all the different kind of rules and tools that you need to understand Bitcoin. And I think that would be all there in the Satoshi movie. And you can have a bunch of spy stuff. And do they find out about us? Or did he tell his wife? Or should we have that guy killed? And all that kind of stuff. And what's great is you don't need to pay anyone for this story, like FTX or Razzlecon or any of these people. You just make it up in the old way that Hollywood used to do when they used to make up new ideas for movies rather than just doing sequels and remakes. So that's what I would like to see. And our final kind of story today is that crypto.com put an advertisement on the Las Vegas Sphere. And sadly, I'm not in Las Vegas to see it, but Las Vegas locally, a fantastic Las Vegas Twitter account writes, Bitcoin made an appearance on the Sphere last night and instantly became the coolest cryptocurrency. So there it is, a little Bitcoin on the Las Vegas Sphere to play you out here towards the end of the show. We're going to go to predictions or story of the week. Victoria Jones, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Well, my story of the week is my next newsletter is due out on Sunday. I did my talk Bitcoin and Tulips in Mallorca 2 weeks ago, and that video is now available on my YouTube channel. But I'll be adding to that with my latest newsletter on Sunday, which means that my last newsletter, Bitcoin and Politics, only has 2 more days for free access. So if you're interested in that, make the most of it, because there'll be a new one up on Sunday.
All right, and everyone can check that out at satoshispage.com. Very good, Victoria. And Daniel, you're at the Bitcoin convention there in Nashville. Before you give us a prediction or story of the week, maybe show us around a little bit. What's going on at the convention there?
So right now, as I said before, I'm sort of sandwiched in between the mining section and the open source stage. Let me actually see if I can turn the camera around. There we go. So I don't want to too many people here, but right over here is the financial freedom stage, or HRF has been putting on their talks. I think Anna Chekovich is there right now speaking with a couple of other, I think Ludmila Kozlovka is also there, and Roger Huang, I can see from the screen. Three people that I have great deal of respect for providing support to people who are dissidents, who are in need of help around the world to raise money for anti-authoritarian resistance causes. That's what I kind of do with the Bitcoin kept moving, and for people like that that really are doing amazing work. I want more attention focused on what they do, not what some dumb CEO or some celebrity is saying. And I hope that more people find their way into Bitcoin through humanitarian focused, human rights focused efforts than through all the sensationalism. And then my story of the week, I do have one. It's not even about the conference, it's about Twitter taking off the Bitcoin symbol from the hashtag Bitcoin. And how now will we ever know who the scammers and bots are on Twitter when they copy and paste their tweets? And every time they do it, that space after the word Bitcoin grows. So you can see that they've copied and pasted it 10 times because there's this giant gap between Bitcoin and the next word. We're not going to know that anymore. They're actually making it easier for scam bots to replace things with a Bitcoin hashtag now that they've taken the icon off. So just another laughable thing that some stupid arbitrary decision that's being made by the new Parsec and CEO.
That's really too bad I hadn't heard that yet, Daniel. I did hear on the web version of Twitter, they're going to change the water pistol emoji into a real gun emoji. And I wonder why they're doing that as well. It makes no sense unless you're kind of saying, we want more violence. And I don't understand that. But yeah, the same thing, removing the Bitcoin symbol from the hashtag. That's too bad. It's one of the things that I like about Twitter. And whenever it happens and I type in Bitcoin and it comes up hashtag, I'm like, oh, that's nice. None of the other coins have that. Ha 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 ha. But we
Well, you
probably
can
won't
always go
be
back
seeing
to
it.
Nostr. You can always go to Nostr where the hashtags still have the icon on most of the time.
Yeah, but they probably have it on a dozen other things, and they probably have a whole process you can apply, and they're probably marking all the new coins and want all of them to work. I don't know. But no, that is too bad about Twitter. They're just making some crazy decisions over there. They also decided to move out of San Francisco and sell their historic building on Market Street, which I can tell you, never sell land in California because you'll never be able to go back. And I think Elon will find that out soon enough. But thanks to everybody for joining us today. Be sure to give us a thumbs up down below. Shout out to anybody that's at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville having fun. Keep an eye out for Daniel there. If you find him, he'll give you a sticker that says Pub Key, something like that. You can also check out Pub Key. It's a bar in New York City, and they're Bitcoin themed. So if you're in New York City, go check that out. Sounds like a really fun place to hang out. So thanks again to everybody for joining us. Until next time, bye
Bye.
bye.